One of the most common reasons somebody listens to this podcast is because they're working a job that doesn't give them the flexibility that they want. They've had a final straw moment, such as their boss renegotiating the commissions they earn while they're selling cable or TV. That's actually exactly how I got started in real estate investing, because I was working this job 60 hours a week and realized that if I was going to work that hard, it ought to be for me. So this is the podcast where we help you 10x your income and replace your W-2 through wholesaling real estate in a proven way where you can earn $20,000 for finding a rundown house, getting it under contract, and then passing it to an investor who would be really privileged to buy it at such a good price that you got it under contract for. Because these investors with a lot of money, they don't necessarily know how to find these really great deals. It takes time to find these really great deals. And so that's where you have an advantage, is you have more time than money, so you can make big checks by doing this legwork for investors. So my name's David Lecko. I created a process 8 years ago now that's helped people close their very first real estate deal 10,000 times in all 50 states with the software platform called DealMachine. One thing, if you're brand new to real estate investing, that you may not know is that if you are looking for how do I find these really great deals, the strategies for finding great deals are always evolving. So one person may tell you to look for rundown distressed properties. One person may tell you to find the tax delinquent list, people who haven't paid their taxes. Another person may say, why don't you just pull a list called absentee owners, people who own properties out of state, and why don't you send postcards to them? Or why don't you door knock them? Or why don't you send text messages to them? Or why don't you cold call? And what happens now that I've been in the industry for 8 years is that the way you reach out to people moves in cycles. When I started, it was direct mail, but then texting took a big portion of what people were doing. And then texting got oversaturated. People were tired of getting these spam calls and texts, so it became less effective. So then it swung back around to more people are getting results from direct mail. So it is always evolving. One of the things that I think always stays true is if you are limited on money, but you have abundance of time, the best way to find deals is actually driving for dollars. That hasn't really changed in decades. So the reason why is because driving for dollars means you're looking for a rundown property. And because it's run down, it doesn't necessarily mean they will want to sell it today. But that's why you want to get them on make a list of those types of properties and then send direct mail to them or text or call, doesn't matter, on a routine basis, maybe once a month, because probability states that if their house is run down and something in their life happens that causes them to have an emergency, they will need to sell that house to raise their cash funds, and they won't be able to sell it for top dollar because it's really run down. And they don't have the money or time to fix it up to get top dollar on the market. So they end up wanting speed and convenience. So you can think about this as a kind of a pawn shop. You're not going to get the top dollar when you bring your guitar there, but you're cleaning out your closet and you just want to get rid of it. You just want whatever cash you can get quickly so you can move on with your life. And so that's kind of the business model and what driving for dollars is, building a list of rundown homes. And I mentioned earlier, you could pull tax delinquent, you could pull absentee owner. Those lists are quite broad. So marketing to those lists, they're easy to get, more people do it, means you have to send more direct mail or more text messages to get a deal from those lists than you do driving for dollars, which requires a little bit more time investment up front. So it's harder. So those properties you're building aren't necessarily on those other lists, but you're the only one who has those lists because it's a hard list to build. So anyway, you can only do that though during the daylight. So if you have a 9-to-5 job and it gets dark at 6, you may not have a lot of time with sunlight out for you to drive around and look for those rundown homes. So there's a new technology that I helped put together called virtual driving for dollars. So as the name suggests, it's a modernized high-tech version of the traditional driving for dollars approach used by real estate investors to hunt down investment-worthy properties. But rather than physically trawling those virtual neighborhoods in search of distressed properties, you're actually going to look for Google Street View and look at the maps on Google Street View. But the great thing is in DealMachine, we put Google Street View in there so that way you can also add properties and see who owns it, see what the comps are, and see what the phone number is of the owners all on the same screen. So You could use Google Street View, but in DealMachine, we incorporate all that. So, I'm going to break down later the pros and cons of virtually driving versus real driving. But if you have a job that doesn't allow you to drive for dollars during the daylight, virtual is your only option. So stick with me and let's get to business so you can successfully get that first deal. So, by now, you're armed with curiosity and you've got your favorite real estate app. You're ready to embark on a journey of virtual driving for dollars. So you actually need to identify a target neighborhood that you're interested in. The best advice that I have is if you are in a city and I think that you have over, 500,000 population, et cetera, your city's perfect. You don't need to go outside any other cities. You'd really wholesale anywhere. But if you're in a big city over 500,000, then you may not want to be like right in the heart of downtown, and you also may not want to be too far. The perfect sweet spot is within 20 minutes of the border of downtown, right? Because a lot of investors will want to invest near the city, but a lot of the homes just right in the middle, they may be too expensive. So you want to kind of get that blue collar area where it's not the nicest homes, but it's also not the most rundown homes. But a neighborhood may be 40 years old, and a lot of homes in those neighborhoods may not be updated and in disrepair. So, within 20 minutes or like near the outer belt highway, interstate of your city, within 10 minutes of that is like a very, very good spot I have found in my own expertise, in my own investing, rather. So once you've picked that area, you could actually pull open your DealMachine app and you'll see the map. And now there's actually going to be an icon that says drive. It's like an orange car. And you're going to see a bunch of options like free drive. That's not what you want. That's when you're driving around in person. You can see a planned route. So that's not what you want either. That means, you had a list already. Like maybe you got the tax delinquent list and you wanted to have the app drive you around in the most efficient way to knock on all those doors. So that's not what we're doing today. Then you'll see an option called virtual drive. That is what we are doing. So once you hit virtual drive, then it's going to say select an area to actually drive. And now you want to click on a house that is maybe near the outer belt of your city. So you click on the house and then you say start driving. And it's going to put you on the street right in front of that house. So then you're going to look around and you're actually going to look for homes that look like they're in disrepair. Now, if you're wondering how recent is this imagery, in the bottom right-hand corner, it should say Google and then 2024. That would mean it was driven in 2024, or if it says 2022, that means it's 2 years old. What I found is in most major cities, Google is driving those once a year. So, it's not as up-to-date as if you were there in person driving, but it is like pretty up-to-date, and it's your only option if you have a job that doesn't allow you to drive during the sunlight. So if you're just curious, that's how that works.
Hey guys, if you know you want to quit your job in the next 3 months, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast because we've got some incredible frameworks with step-by-step instruction that you're not going to want to miss. Also, leave us a rating and review to let us know your favorite parts and why you want to get financial freedom.
So when you're looking around, look at all the streets, go up and down the streets. You could tap the streets to move to a new position, and then you could pan around with your finger to look at the homes. If you see overgrown bushes, if you see a mailbox stuffed full, if you see, the only house out there with trash cans and nobody else has trash cans out, those are all good things to look for. If you see peeling paint, a lot of times the soffit, which is that forward-facing board on the edge of the roof, will have peeling paint there first because it's most closest to the water and where that may not be draining properly. If you see gutters that look really banged up, or if you see cracked window, or you see a tarp on the roof, those are all really good signs. Basically, if a house sticks out, as in it's not looking as good as the others in the neighborhood, that's really all you need to add it to your list and keep on moving. Now, the name of the game here is not perfection, picking the perfect house, the perfect rundown house, rather. It's kind of an oxymoron. But you actually want to do volume, right? So you want to do a lot of homes, like minimum 300 homes. So you want to get to 300 rundown homes as fast as possible. So if you get worried about, well, is this property the right type or not? I just thought of another thing you could look for is biological growth. And if you need a refresher, just go ahead and add a property as a test, okay? And then once you add that property, which when you look at a property, it'll bring up info about that property with a button that says add, right? So that's what I mean by add a property. And if you don't see that, try to move to a different spot on the street and then center the screen on one of the homes and wait just a second. It should pop up that little info box where you can add the property. If you want a refresher on all the things that you should look for when you're actually driving, you could actually click that once you add the property, that you could click into the lead to see more info. And there should be a button that looks like a little name tag or tags or like a luggage tag. So click that and you'll see all these tags. You could tag the property, but all the property tags in DealMachine are set up so that you could actually, use that as a mind jogger to say, wow, okay, snow, but no tire tracks, stuffed full mailbox, overgrown bushes. Those are what all the tags look like. So those are going to give you like the 20 most common things that you would want to look for while you're virtually driving for dollars. So now that we've covered the basics of virtually driving for dollars, let's dive into the traditional driving for dollars and see how it is different. So obviously, when you're doing traditional driving, you're going to drive those neighborhoods and you're going to click free drive, which lets you kind of drive wherever you want. Oh, and by the way, whether you're virtually driving or you're free driving, DealMachine's going to keep track of where you have driven. So that way you don't end your drive, come back a day later to do some more driving and end up wasting time driving on the same street. It'll show up on your map as a green pathway to show where you have driven. And over time, 6 months later, the green will turn to yellow. And after a year, the yellow will turn to red. And then eventually it will disappear, meaning you should redrive that area again. So with traditional driving for dollars, you're able to see the property in the current state that it is. So that's, depending on how up-to-date the Google Street View, it could not be the case for virtual driving for dollars. But again, it's better than nothing if you can't get out there in person. With virtual driving, you might not get the current condition of the property, but you will be able to drive at any time of the day or night, which might benefit a busy schedule, as we've been saying. Other considerations to take into account are while driving for dollars, you'll be, incurring fuel costs, wear and tear on your vehicle. With virtual driving, the costs you'll be incurring are just the electricity it takes to charge your device. So it's not too much. And with both traditional driving for dollars and virtual driving for dollars, you'll be able to build that niche list of properties. Some people say niche. I say niche. They both mean the same thing. It is meaning it's like a very specialized list that only you have. It's not one of those easy to get lists that everyone's blasting that make it harder to get a really good deal. So why should you virtual drive for dollars? If it's your only option, that's one reason. Efficiency. Sitting at your desk and scouting for properties online could be much faster than actually driving around. And the faster you find potential deals, the quicker you can close them. Cost savings, as we said, eliminates costs with traditional driving, such as fuel and vehicle wear. And then a broader reach. Virtual driving for dollars allows you to scout for properties in any part of the country. So, if you live in San Diego, maybe you'll have better success in a Midwest market like Indianapolis. It opens up a broader range of opportunities that would otherwise be inaccessible. But again, if you're brand new, I think there's just nothing better than going there in person. But again, if you're in a different country, for example, and you want to invest in the U.S., virtual driving is the best way to actually find those first few deals. So I am so happy that you guys have the virtual driving for dollars option. Now, it wasn't an option whenever I got started 8 years ago, and I just kind of took action. That's the most important thing and lesson that I'll leave you with here is it took me 7 months to get my first deal. I spent 3 months finding only 40 properties. And I've got to tell you guys, the fastest shortcut to getting properties is actually getting to 300 rundown homes as fast as possible, and then either send mail or in DealMachine, we've got that unlimited contact info that tells you exactly who owns it, exactly who's renting it, what their income is, where they went to college, if they're married or not, and then, of course, their phone number and their email. And we'll tell you if there's anybody that's on the do not call list, but unless you're calling to sell them something, which if you're wholesaling, you're not really selling them anything. You're asking as a neighbor, do they want an offer on their house, which I personally always feel is totally okay, and do that regardless of if they are on the do not call list or not. And of course, if you want the real answer, talk to an attorney. But in my position, I just wanted to share that's actually been the interpretation of DealMachine's attorney is that the do not call list, if you're asking to buy their house does not apply. And so with that, I want you guys to hit me up on Instagram, Lecko, and tell me what was your top takeaway from this episode on virtually driving for dollars, and what other questions are giving you that analysis paralysis feeling, preventing you from taking action. So hit me up on Instagram, Lecko, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.